turn around.
Turning point, yeah.
He's gonna turn around.
Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Ocran. Welcoming you to Ghana's foremost developmental program and that place where the greatest minds in the world converge. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and our friends at the Graphic Communications Group. Today, let's talk about death. A subject many of us are very uneasy around, and yet is such an inevitable part of our lives. What is it that scares us? Is it a sense of loss? Is it the fear of our own mortality? Let's explore the aspects of the subject that remain like a mystery. And to help us break them down, I have two very important partners of us here in the studio, our friends from Transitions, Genevieve, Cornelius, Managing Director. Genevieve, good to see you.
Good to see you, Reverend.
It's been a while.
Yes, Reverend.
You're looking great.
Thank you, Reverend.
Right. We are joined by Dr. Seth Asafo from the Ghana Psychological Association. Seth, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So let's start with the part that is for many people very unnerving. Seth, we lose things every day. Football matches, food, money, promotional interviews, visa interviews. We lose things every day. Why is death in particular so unnerving and a taboo subject for many?
Well, I think the bigger picture has to do with the fact that death seems very eternal in nature. Even in my experience as a psychologist, I can tell you one thing. In its eternity, there are, as I'd call it, a halftime of some sort based on the belief system you have. Now, I can speak a lot about Christians. So for many people I've worked with who are Christians, who believe that when somebody dies, they're asleep and there's a chance of reuniting at some point again, the grieving seems to be much more tolerable for them, knowing that it's eternal but not eternal. Now, I've worked with people who have no belief, they don't have a belief system. So let me use the word politically, pagans. And when they lose somebody, the mind says it's forever and ever. There is no possibility of ever connecting with them again. And so that pain for them is very, very profound. Now, we always say that to grieve, a prerequisite for grief is an attachment. So without an attachment, the grief seems to be on the surface. But if you have a deep attachment to anything, and I mean anything, it's not even about humans, it could be even a job, could be a relationship, could be even your health. And I've been laughing a lot with many colleagues lately saying that now when we go to play football, we believe we are still in the same, youthful strength we had. And so when they push the ball, you're running as hard as you can. You see these young bloods they just sprint past you and you're like, what is happening? And all these things affect us. So at the end of the day, when you look at grief is a huge transition in anybody's life. It's a change. Now, human beings get our sense of safety from our ability to predict our world, to have control over the world. And anything that changes means that it reconfigures your brain. Now, it's even interesting to find that even positive change registers on your brain.
Does the awareness of the fact that it will by all means happen not change anything?
So, truthfully, many of us know, except that our emotions, or let me put it this way, there's an intellectual part of it and an emotional part. And emotions always will trump over the intellect. So I may know something is coming, but when it actually does come, it's a different thing.
You owe the bank, they'll come for their money. When they come, then you pretend. Let me come to you, Genevieve.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginnings. Yeah. When the person makes that first call to you at Transitions,
Yes.
Describe how they normally behave when they make that first call, when they've lost a loved one and they make the first call. Are they confused? Are they angry? How do they normally present?
Right. Thank you, Reverend. Naturally, most of the time, the state is confusion and lack of awareness or lack of admittance to what is happening. So most of the time, you wouldn't even get the most direct people involved during the call. It's, you look for the next sane, permit me to
like
use
that
that
word.
word,
I
the
like that
next
word.
sane person within the environment. They are the one that will call, we need help, something has happened, the person, a loved one has passed or something. Or if it's coming from a hospital, then you have a nurse, and they are much calmer. They are able to tell you what has happened and all that. But generally, that first call is a very difficult call, filled with emotions, calling, and confusion. And that is normally what the practice is.
And I'm sure when you get to see them physically, it's almost like an extension of what you heard from the call.
Yeah. So normally when it happens and you go, especially the calls that come from home, so it means that the loved one has just passed from home. When you enter and you meet the scene, you see you are surrounded by immediate family and you are surrounded by a scene of, like Doc said, grief and crying. Your approach there is to offer your immediate condolences and to be calm about it. That's not a time to be given directions. Go straight to where the loved one is, do a few technical due diligences, and offer comfort. At that moment, what their family or the loved one is looking for is a comfort that their loved one will be taken care of very well. And so you need to give that comfort. We don't at that moment try to do any grief therapy thing because so much is happening and so much chaos is running at the same time. And your best solution at that moment is to give comfort that the loved one will be taken care of whilst it gives the family the period they need to settle down.
Doc, talking about settlement, walk us through the various stages in the grief process. We'll come to settlement, but walk us through the various stages and the symptoms that people present and probably the science behind it.
Okay. So there is a linear sequence that people normally would describe. The reality is it's never linear. It's haphazard, but at some point in time, you'll find that you are in one of these stages. You may go through one and jump the rest. So let's just understand that there are things that you recognize so you know I'm in this state. Now, it typically starts with a sense of denial. Now, denial is a defense mechanism, but it's a good one because what it does is it makes it gradual for you to accept the change that is happening. I'm sure we've all heard about somebody who just has bad news and then they'll collapse or something. That's what you call a sensory overload because once they accept it, it's too heavy for the mind. So the mind has to put in a fail-safe mechanism. So denial normally looks like people saying, I don't accept this. Even within like health settings, someone gets a bad news and they say, Tofiakwa. My God doesn't teach me.
I like it.
Tofiakwa,
Do the hand like that.
All those expressions are ways of saying, I cannot accept it. So they're in denial, they're in shock.
So you call that a defense mechanism?
It's a defense mechanism.
And the next stage is?
The next stage, so usually when you transition from denial, people get into a stage of anger. They're angry at themselves or somebody else. Or sometimes they're angry, they don't even know why. And they're asking, why did this happen? Why should it happen? Why to me? Now, when people have gone through that stage, they get to a place we normally call bargaining, where they make these statements of if, then. So it's like making a promise. And it can be as intense as, if this person comes back to life, I promise I will donate something. They're trying to battle with the world, with God, for something to happen. And that's part of them trying to make sense of, I wish I could have the person to come back. Now, if that doesn't work, many people will go into a depression where they feel like, okay, now I can't do anything about it. It's painful. This is the loss. And they feel down. They don't want to do anything. They're just basically wallowing in the pain of the loss. Now, if people are able to navigate all these stages, they come to a place of what we call acceptance. And an acceptance is the most adaptive stage in the grieving process. I'm not saying all the other grieving processes are not good, but the most adaptive is when they come to a place where they say, what's happened has happened. I'm going to move forward. And people sometimes will ask questions like, if my loved one was here, what would they want me to do? That's usually an acceptance. So they're carrying the embodiment of that person mentally with them to do something, still honoring the person. That's usually what acceptance is. And then you start to find that they start to thrive again. So it looks like a U, where they start up, they drop, and then they rise up again. That's usually the process of the grieving process. But people can move from 1 to 5 and back to 1 in
Like a cycle.
Exactly. So it's a roller coaster, really.
Genevieve, let me come to you. What quality or attribute do you need to do this kind of job?
A lot of emotional intelligence. You need a lot of emotional intelligence, that you are able to manage your emotions and understand the emotion of the one in front of
Do
you.
they sometimes get angry at you?
Of course. A lot, because
What are they angry about?
like Doc said, they are going through various. Some people are grieving and handling so many family-related issues. They can't decipher what is going on, caused problems and all that. So you, at a point in time, that becomes that one-point solution to them. You are at the same time the one educating them. You are the same one guiding them. And at times it feels like you have what their loved one. They don't have their loved one. That's number one. 2, it's like they want to do certain things and you are advising that this is the better option.
Like?
Okay, so you have somebody who people want to, let's say, go home and do viewing, take their loved one home and do what in the olden days we call waykeeping. Okay, based on family preferences, the family don't want it. That client is upset. And they are trying to...
So it's like an internal family squabble.
Exactly. Most of the time, that's where we are caught in. And then we have legal issues. Oh, you should see the legal battles that happens in the funeral space. It's another thing altogether. So they are angry at you because you should be helping them to convince the family that what they want to do is the best. But this is way beyond what we can do. So we are trying to convince you that, okay, even though you want to do this, family says that is not the way they want to. How best can I help you? What do you want to achieve with waykeeping? That's my job.
So Doc talked about a certain place of acceptance.
Yeah.
From your point of view as, forgive my words, a professional,
Yeah.
and that's what you are.
Yes, I am.
At which stage do you normally see them getting into the acceptance? Is it when they view the body? Is it when they come and somebody said, today when I went, my mom was looking nice. I felt better about it.
Yeah.
At what stage, from your point of view, do you see people transition much more easily into acceptance?
Surprisingly, it is around the final funeral period. That is when their loved one is finally dressed up. Okay? And they see the loved one in a casket. It has a whole dynamic.
Explain.
Okay, so you see, whenever your loved one passes, you visit. You come and visit, but they are almost always lying, like they're lying still, but they feel like they're on a bed on a bed. They are sleeping and all that. The element, you dress them all up the way they want to be dressed, and you see them in a casket, it changes the whole thing. Because a casket is now not a bed. You are now having a sense of awareness that from here, he's not readily going to be available here again. He's now on his way, moving from the earth. He's now going to the ground. So it is one of the elements from our point of view where we see people having some kind of acceptance. And also during that period, you see a lot of family traditions being done. Okay, some come to pray, some come to do all kinds of things. And then there's an awareness that this is the final bit. This departure rite is like, tells you that I'm accepting. I was just telling Doc that, and for me, the final bit from what I see is the element of lowering the casket into the grave.
I'm going to come back to you on that. Yeah. Doc, let me take you back 3 steps. I'm surprised you're talking about this so in such a relaxed manner. You guys are experts. I'm just curious, and I'm asking these questions on behalf of my viewers and my listeners because, there are things that Bob Marley said, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. There are things that we are concerned about, but we just can't talk about them. So today I have two experts in my studio. I'm going to ask you the tough questions.
Sure.
From where you sit as a psychologist, what percentage of people's grief is emotional, and what percentage is financial and organizational?
You see, the interesting thing is you cannot isolate any of them.
Right.
Because in that moment, all of them are working together. It's like a chemical reaction. So you let's say 100 times 100 times 100.
Okay.
That's what you're working with rather than isolating.
But those two are real.
All of them are real.
Okay.
Now, it depends on who you are
Okay.
and where you are in like the socioeconomic ladder.
So model the scenarios. Let's see.
Okay, so let me give you this picture. You see, somebody may be well-to-do and they may lose a loved one. Now, for them, the pain of losing the loved one is not in the finances of the burial, but it is in the, I should have spent more on this person before they went. So now I have all of this, but what am I really doing with it? And it makes them feel a sense of guilt. So you see, they are grieving, they are feeling sad, but then they are adding one other emotion, which is guilt. Another person's emotions are, how am I going to give this person a befitting burial? Because now that they are gone, they are still dear to me. And you know, the relationship you have with someone is not severed. I mean, literally, we say sever those bonds, but it's never going to be severed. I always tell people we move on with grief. We don't move away from it. So you are carrying it on, and then they are asking themselves, so how am I going to do it? I don't have the resources. Let's not forget, there are societal like expectations that you are not able to meet. There's a huge family battle. These people are saying this. I say, Abami is my mother. Where were all of you when mommy was sick? Then you are now here and you want to. So at the heart of a lot of grief is the one emotion, frustration. The first frustration is the yearning. So think about grief like this. You want something. You move close to the thing and the thing moves away from you consistently, because grieving, we normally say, is a motivational state where you yearn for that thing or that person you've lost, except that all the actions you take close to the thing never gets you there. And if you have a goal that's being blocked, you get frustrated. That's the first one. Then now you try to control the environment. So you see, that call that you make is trying to assert some control even during that period of chaos. Okay, let's structure things. So if you have challenges around then, that frustration now is multiplied by the frustration of the person you are yearning for, you are not getting. Then you have the issues of finances, you have the social issues, you have the medical issues of certificates, which sometimes can be very troublesome to get. So all of this is just during that moment after death. Now, let's not even forget that even after the burial, there are other issues that are still frustrating, where you need to get a death certificate to maybe access certain like properties, and those can be very within our system is a lot of frustration. So you mix and match all of that and see exactly what's happening within the person. But I must also say, people are different, but they will experience these emotions, except the degrees may be varying based on the experiences they've had already and their level of, let me say, connection, as it were.
I'd love to say a big ayiko to the Springboard Virtual University. 16 years of great work, 16 years of making an impact in our lives. Thank you. So all the best as Springboard Virtual University continues. And I'm looking forward to great content as always, and great personalities sharing their lessons and insights. It's been an exciting journey, and we're really looking forward to the next 16 times 16 times 16. So Ayuko to Springboard Virtual University.
This is Springboard, your virtual university. You would normally call this a morbid conversation, but trust me, it's a very helpful, therapeutic discussion about something that we face on a day-by-day basis, but often find ourselves very ill prepared for. The objective in bringing these experts into the studio is to help you to know what to do where to go, how to manage yourself to avoid, for lack of a better word, affliction striking a second time. My guests in the studio, Genevieve Cornelius, Managing Director, Transitions, a proud member of the Enterprise Group, and of course our friends from the GPA represented here by Dr. Seth Asafo, trying to help us understand what he calls not a linear but very critical blocks in the process. I have quite a load of questions, and in the second part of this conversation we'll be talking about support systems before, during, and after. The various issues that people present. Do you think that the funeral processes, the complications of having to choose a casket, to do all the things that you do, help the people to get over the line?
I believe it significantly helps. It does not eradicate almost all the issues, because the issues are financial, emotional, social, and all that. What we do is to help significantly with the organization bit, and predominantly controlled also by the financial bit. Okay, strongly from a cultural background, and our culture and beliefs play significant part of our funeral process. We help with helping, depending on the cultural belief that the loved one comes from, we take that stress of moving around and coordinating. Africans' funerals are elaborate. Up there within a week or two, funeral is done. But here, it's a whole celebration involving 4 distinct family members and social relations and all that. So what we do significantly...
What are the 4?
Okay, so one person that passes has 4 distinct family: paternal, mother and father. Then we have maternal. The maternal also have another 2 segments. So your mom has 2 family side, your pop also has 2 family side, and at the period of death, all families must be brought together. Okay, and if it's by marriage, then the sets are even much more wider, because now you have the spouse family that must be considered in all that.
And
so
the children.
The children, unfortunately, the children in our funeral settings are normally not given unless they are much older, or yes, much older, but they are not given much of a say.
Is it only a financial say?
It's a financial say. And that is a huge cause of the stress. Okay, so you see practically, let me use the children as an example, coming in, and all they are doing is they are the financiers. And then we have the aunties and the uncles being the decision makers. So we bring in the element of bringing all the aspects together under one roof. Okay, and taking the legwork, the stress from you, so that you will have the chance to grieve appropriately.
When I come back from this break, you draw the value chain. It sounds very a value chain of the whole process that you say you take over, just to help. And I'll tell you my own experience with Genevieve. Genevieve is the quintessential professional. I'll tell you about the day when I called her crying and how she managed the situation. And still now, anyone that I find in that situation, I call Genevieve. I say call Genevieve, I call her, and I know it will be done. But this is Springboard, your virtual university, helping you to appreciate what we all fear, but what we all need, how to respond when you lose a loved one. And by the way, are there things you can do ahead of time to reduce the shock or the pressure when a loved one passes? This is brought to you by the Springboard Ratio Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. Let me share an enterprise advantage tip for you, just to give you perspective on policy. And the question for today is, what's the difference between home insurance and content insurance? Home insurance and content insurance. I won't ask Genevieve. So content insurance focuses on the valuables other than the building in a home, whereas in the broader context, home insurance includes the value of the building and its content. So I guess you know now what to do. Go for the full hog of home insurance. This is brought to you by the Enterprise Group. Call Enterprise on 030-263-4777. Enterprise, your advantage. Let's go for a break. When we come back, let's walk through the step-by-step guide about what to do now and what to do when the inevitable strikes. Please don't go away.
Hello? Bye.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, I bet it's the bird. Bird is the bird. Don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is the bird. Bird, I bet it's the bird.
To consider the implications.
Whether it's 1924, 2024, or 2124, we've always known that you are driven by your sense of safety and well-being. It is what drives us to see you through from start to finish, from small to big. And in the last 100 years, as you have evolved, so have we also expanded to serve you in many ways. From cradle to grave, with expertise in insurance, life, pensions, properties, health, and for those beautiful memorable goodbyes. It's 2024, and in all our markets, our pedigree is recognized, our strength respected, our expertise valued, and our solutions sought by all who desire an advantage in life. Experience the time-tested and truly trusted 100 years legacy of Ghana's oldest insurer. Take charge of your future now. Insurance, life, pensions, property management, funeral services, health insurance. Enterprise for your advantage.
Teampreneurship 2024. This year's theme is Next Gen Innovate. The date is the 19th to the 23rd of August 2024. Venue is Christ the King Catholic Church Hall, Cantonment. Time 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Come, let's have fun and learn about AI, fashion, agribusiness, agri-tech, theatre arts, and many more. I hope to see you there.
Hi everyone, this is Michael Bozondo, CEO of Petrosol on Springboard Virtual University. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Quist. I'm the Managing Director of Piedmont Advisory. I would like to encourage you to join us to watch the Springboard Virtual University this week.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university. This is the conversation about managing grief and loss. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. You also get support from the Ghana Growth Program, an initiative of MasterCard Foundation in partnership with Springboard. And that's how we get to get GPA working with us on the Ghana Growth Program. And if you are a young person curious about opportunity in the agriculture and ATVET space, the number to call to find out about what is available and the opportunities is the number 030-825-5775. This number will connect you to the call center. So you can call or WhatsApp that number to find out more about Ghana growth and opportunities for young people. In case you did not join us in the first part, I'm talking to a person with an MPhil in Agric Administration and then a business management degree from Stellenbosch in South Africa, and a chartered insurer who deals with the living as well as the dead. My good friend and sister, Genevieve Cornelius. Genevieve,
Yes.
where does the business management development management come in when you are dealing with people who are
Thank you. Right. The funeral industry, I believe, is one of the most diverse industries. It combines all the industries together.
I can imagine.
So, yes.
You know what? Help us to understand the entire process, because for all you know, there will be viewers and listeners who have no idea about what you do. So just walk us through what you do for people when they call in or they reach out to you. What kind of services do you offer?
Thank you, Reverend. So the first call is usually when somebody passed at home or the hospital. Priority then is to offer the family the convenience of conveying their loved one from the place of death to our premises. So we dispatch a professional team to our place. We don't ask the family to bring their loved one in. So we go in, do all the proper things, healthy things to do, because not even all the environments are healthy. And how to even convey is a skill that we come in to help the family with the process. The next key stage is preservation, okay, because our funeral process normally takes long before the event happens. We then walk the family through the act of preservation. We do a lot of consultation to know the right kind to do. It's not, preservation is not one. It's a technique and a skill.
What are the dynamics involved?
Okay,
what different situations are there? Is it the type of person, the color, the death, the cause of death? What are the dynamics?
Yes. So primarily the disease or the cause of death, like you say, it could be accidental, okay, where there's some kind of maybe damages in the way, okay. Then you have even the length of stay, depending on how long people will stay when they are traveling outside the country. Also requires different kind of preservation. Then we have the physical attribute, fair, dark, obese, slim. There are so many dynamics that goes into it. So to the average family, preservation, but to the expert, it's a whole science behind it. And we take all that from the family. We advise to let you know, to make sure that, like we talked about grief, seeing your loved one close to who you remember them to be is one of the greatest closures in grief management.
I can tell you that for most people, the first time when they smile is seeing their loved one and they say, she was looking nice, or he was looking nice when laid in state. And then the person who is grieving smiles, and then they go back to grieving again, but at least they smile at that point.
Yes.
Why is it such a big thing for people?
Right. You see, the element of that's your final departure moment. And knowing that the person is leaving, looking peaceful, that's where the whole element, that is an image you keep with you. Okay? You know that though the person is gone, he or she left peaceful, left looking good. And all things being equal, they believe that the person is going to appear before their maker. They are going to appear before God looking really fantastic.
And that's what people believe.
That is a good one.
So for you providing the service, is that one of the ultimate critical success factors for you, that the person should look good?
Yes, look good and look and give the family that closure to know that this is their loved one. Okay, so no matter how traumatic the death was, the person finally had a semblance of peace going, and they were good, and they actually gave them their best. So primarily, it's like your loved one. This is your final act of love.
How do people react when they see their loved one and they feel that, wow, you've outdone yourself? Do they want to pay more? What do they say? Do they sing? Do they cry? Do they dance? Tell me, walk me through.
Honestly, that's why they pay more. They don't want to pay more.
Oh, they should pay more.
They don't want to pay more, but there's a sense of, wow, I like it. She's quiet. She's peaceful. It's like she's sleeping. And we've had cases where she's even looking, or he's looking better than as they were when they were alive. And we have even had cases where they said the men are looking too handsome than when they were alive. And that sense of knowing that they left very well and they have been taken care of gives them a good memory to hold on to.
So conveyance is one, preservation is one. Is there any other thing you'd like to touch on?
Then the documentation. Don't talk about documentation. We begin the paperwork. Okay, so depending on what the funeral is all about, repatriation or cremation, we help a lot with paperwork. helping the family, getting even at time autopsy to be done, medical costs of them. We do that. Then we actually work with the family to plan the funeral. Casket, shroud, what type of funeral do you want? Where would burial be? Large crowd, all the dynamics and the logistics. It takes.
Don't you get overwhelmed by all these details?
We have professionally trained experts. So we'll give you a dedicated funeral planner who has been trained.
Like a relationship manager.
Like a relationship
banking.
More than banking, because this one is giving you guidance, giving you, showing you where to get things that are not even working with your budget. You understand? And then at the end of the day, you're looking at the profile of the funeral, recommending, okay, this is a casket you need. Is it a male? Is it a female? You'll be surprised. All these things working. Okay. At times, the cultural nuances or peculiarities of the funeral, like a twin. If it's a twin, you need a white casket. If it's not a little boy, a little girl, all those little things.
I'll come back to you to talk about the amount of research involved in your work, and I'm impressed at how well you know the craft and the industry. I'll come back to this, the peculiarities of religion and some peculiar circumstances. But Doc, let me come back to you from the point of view of a psychologist. In doing all these things and working through the various requirements, talk to me about self-care. How must a person take care of themselves to ensure that as they take care of somebody who has passed, they don't damage their own selves as a result?
Okay. So there are three critical things in self-care. One has to do with sleep, the other one has to do with diet, and the third one has to do with movement. Now, the reason these three are that important is
sleep, diet.
So it's like eat, sleep, and move.
Okay.
I wouldn't say exercise here, I would say move.
So now, ESM.
Yes, ESM.
Okay.
A lot of grief is also felt in the muscles. So the muscles dull up when you're grieving. Now, when you're moving, the other message that it sends to the brain is that because we are moving, things are not bad. So that the way the brain would release those chemicals to keep you in a state of down is reduced. That's one. Two.
So move a lot.
Move a lot. No, move.
So those who put restrictions on widows and so on, they should not move.
It's not helpful.
They make it worse, don't they?
Exactly. And even when it gets worse.
As a pastor, I'm just thinking through how sometimes just after the widowhood rites, the widow comes so alive. And yet the person is kept indoors and restricted from movement. Good. The color you're wearing, everything keeps you.
So that statistic that says that, like especially within spouses, one spouse goes, there's almost like a 70% chance the second spouse will go. It's shrouded within loneliness, the concept of loneliness. Now, don't forget, so far as the person is gone, even when there are other people around you, you're already feeling lonely. How much more being asked to be in a place where it's just you, where you can't feel the aura of people around. And I always talk about the social experiment of COVID, when people were kept indoors. Everybody will tell you, the feeling was weird. I wasn't dead. I wasn't sick, but the feeling was weird. And that's what they are going through, except that in this case, they are adding into the loss of someone who's been with them for the past, say, 20, 30 years. So it makes it worse. Now, in terms of diet that they have to eat, we know we say a healthy body is a healthy mind. But deep down within the biological circuits is the fact that many of those feel-good neurotransmitters, like I said, they are produced in the stomach. So you have to get it started. If you don't eat, the stomach cannot produce those things that will lighten your mood.
Let's talk about sleep.
Sleep is the third one. Now, sleep is an amazing thing. First of all, they say that sleep helps with boosting our mood. That's the first thing. And if you ever try mending a broken heart, make sure that you sleep a lot. So during sleep, what the brain does is it cleans the surface of the brain in a process it's called the lymphatic system. It actually cleans the brain. And by cleaning the brain, it's making it strong and it's also refreshing. It's giving it a boost. So during sleep is the time where you go on break from those thoughts being active. Now, some people will dream about it, but in the dreaming process, it's an amazing thing. When you're dreaming, you are not in your conscious mind, you're in your subconscious mind. Now, your subconscious mind has a storehouse of memories. So in your subconscious mind, when you're dreaming about your loved one, your brain tends to pull out all the memories you have about the person, which means that it will pull also the positive memories. And I always say you have more positive memories about people than bad.
Negative, okay.
So in a sense, you're grieving, but in your dream, it's soothing. So you wake up feeling much better in that process. So self-care during loss is three things specifically, which is your food, your sleep, and exercise. Now, the excess of them has to do with making sure there's social support, people you can just talk to. So we know that when you're grieving, the more you talk about it, the easier it gets on you. And I want to create a picture from our local settings. When someone dies, you go to their house, you see they're in chambers, and then they'll tell you, oh, Thursday, they narrate the story
helps, eh?
to the first person. Another person will come. They keep narrating the story. Now, if you pay close attention, between the first narration, maybe on the first day, and the 10th narration on the second day, you notice the emotional reactions drop. They are no longer crying because their brain is coming to an acceptance. As you talk about it, the acceptance comes one. And the second thing is that you're venting out. Now, I tell people to look at emotions like this. Emotions need to be expressed. If you don't express them, they will express themselves. It's just like when you want to, you feel like you want to use the washroom, and then you're holding it back. At some point, it will come out on its own. That's the way emotions should be looked at. So it will come out. But if you help it to come, it won't be out. It won't be an outburst, but it will be like a calm exposure of that emotion, which also puts you in a state of calm. And we know that when you cry, tears are made up of stress hormones. So if you were to test it, you'll notice a lot of cortisol within it. So I always tell people, cry.
Oh, that's a good one there. So let's stay with that subject.
Yes.
So it means that those who say Berryman or those who say it's okay, stop crying, you're crying too much, are doing more harm than
they're
good.
doing a lot of harm both emotionally and physically, because in the not crying, there's a pressure that's building up. Now that pressure usually accounts for why your heart is beating a lot, because it's saying danger, danger, danger. And it predisposes a lot of people to the broken heart, or we call it Takotsubo syndrome. So you're piling up a certain pressure because you're not able to express it. Even with food, if you cook in a pressure cooker, without opening it, you cannot eat the food. And if you leave it there, it will burn. So when you are not expressing, the expression of emotions is not just, it's almost automatic. For example, if you bang a door to your finger, the first thing you do is to shout. Nobody has to tell you to shout. You shout because
apart from some films in some other countries, I'm about to die. I have been shot and I will die. I am dead. Just in case you tuned in, this is Springboard Virtual University discussing the subject of grief and loss. And my guest, Dr. Seth, Asafo, and Genevieve Cornelius from the GPA and also from Transitions, helping us to walk through the process. I must say that it's been very instructive so far. I want to touch on preparations before, because so far we've talked about what to do when a loved one passes. Are there things you can do before that would make things easier when the inevitable happens? Genevieve, let's start with you.
Thank you, Reverend. Yes. Predominantly, you can think about, like Reverend said, having a mindset to accept the death that is going to happen. And if it's going to happen, what can you do? You can prepare financially, number one, by picking a funeral insurance policy, meaning that you are making preparation that in the event it happens, financially you get support. Because as Doc mentioned, the financial stress is part of the triggers of the loss. Then secondly, you can also talk to, apart from insurance, you can talk to a funeral home. Okay, a funeral home offers solutions. So we have cases where people have come in, especially those on palliative care. They've come in to begin the conversation. What are we to do? Should it happen? We're expecting it to happen. And you'll be surprised, after the conversation, the people had gone on to recover. Or it didn't mean just because they talked to a funeral home, the person died. But that preparation, okay.
So isn't there a feeling of shame on you? I mean,
No,
how do you go and talk to a funeral home when somebody's alive?
you'll be surprised. It's helping a lot of people.
How?
It's helping because it will happen. They are telling themselves it will happen. It's just that in this our loved one case, doctors or medical evidence is pointing to the fact that it will be happening in the within the shorter period of time. And so they are coming up to say that if it happens, we would need this and that done for us. We will not want to have a prolonged period. This is what we need. And especially,
And what does that do for the person asking?
so the person coming in, number one, it helps the person to be properly prepared to deal the after event death. So after it happened, and also from a family point of view, coordination and planning it helps the family to plan. Everybody knows what to do, because one of the chaos is when there's no preparation. Then you see all kinds of chaos happening. I'll do this, you didn't tell me, you didn't talk about this, you've gone into my space, I'm supposed to do that, and all kinds of confusion. So apart from the financial
Does it help when the person who has gone on to be with the Lord clearly details what they want done when they pass? Does it help?
It helps. It helps a lot. Of late, we are seeing a drift where even where the one departed plans the funeral, the benefactors or the custodians of the will or the guideline laid down by the person is shifted from.
They overrule it.
They overrule it.
Hey, when the dead person stand up and knock them. Oh, Roger.
Oh yes, they do overrule them. So you have cases where they will come in and they will say that, oh, they said they don't want to be buried, but they need to make money from the funeral. So not that they don't want to be buried, they don't want an elaborate funeral, but how would we bury the person if we don't have the show about it? And people change. I don't want to be buried in my hometown. They'll take the person to the hometown. I don't want this. That is exactly what they will do. And they will say they would understand. Or they'll pour libation to pacify the spirit so that they can change it.
Doc, talk to us about the preparation before.
So, one of the jobs I do is I break bad news. I break bad news.
Okay.
And bad news usually would be to tell somebody that, unfortunately, your results show that you have an average number of days. And what we find is, even during that period, people go through what you call anticipatory grief. So they anticipate what will happen.
In this instance, is it the person about to pass,
the person
or the loved
the
ones?
family? They all
Both.
have anticipatory grief. Looking at, there will be a time when they are no longer there. So for the person who's about to pass, they're saying, what happened to my children? What happened to my partner? Now, that process of letting them know that this will happen allows them, and from our point of view is when they write their wills, at least they say, if not for anything, my children will never struggle because I have a board of trustees that will manage their education. So it eases a little more of the grief they would have about my child being maltreated, they wouldn't get to school. So that is like an essential part of that preparation. Now, for the person who is passing, they also prepare to pass when we are able to point out to them that in your quest to protect the people you care about, you're going to become very angry. You're going to try and drive people away because your common sense is if they are not too close to you, they won't suffer so much when you are gone. But when we make them understand it's actually the opposite, then it allows them to allow people to come in. So then in your last days, you're actually like engulfed by people who care and are showing affection. So that is for the person who's about to pass. For the people who will remain, the preparation of he will pass eventually. Now, and Genevieve said something about control. And remember that stress brings on more stress. So the death of the person is stressful. Planning the funeral is stressful. Once you have structure, you reduce some of that stress. And that, for me, is why it's important to, if you take a policy, the policy is going to cater for a majority of certain things. It allows you to gain some control because during loss, you lose control. And anything you can control makes you feel a little better. Now, the same issue of control is why you have family members fighting a lot when they are making decisions about death. because everybody wants to try and control the little they can. So it's not that they enjoy arguing, but they also want to control something. They've lost a lot of control in their life. So at least if I can control where the person will be buried, it gives me a sense of calm.
Does that explain why people sometimes seem to almost change when there's a funeral or a loss?
It is one, but the other side of it is it could be also attributed to the fact that they are not able to grieve. So they take on what we call a defense mechanism to allow them to go through that process. So that could be one reason. It could be the frustrations. It could be guilt. It could be so many things. I mean,
is the level of displacement worsened by the kind of death, let's say suicide, or what is deemed to be a shameful?
The kind of grief is worsened by the kind of death.
So accidental, suicidal.
Perfect. Those are
execution.
Grief because it was unexpected. I mean, I was talking to the person today. Tomorrow they were gone. That's traumatic because it's unexpected. And what traumatic grief does to a lot of people is that it makes them lose their sense of even being alive, because in their mind is like, you could also go just like that. So to what end? And I've worked with dozens of people who've lost interest in their spiritual connection. So whether it's a Christian, they're like, why did God allow this to happen? So it happens in that light. Now, in suicide, especially when your loved one dies by suicide, the kind of grief you go through is a mixture of both traumatic grief and what we call disenfranchised grief, where everybody else is saying how stupid of them. So in other words, you get into a confusion of, but if everybody cannot feel what I'm feeling, why am I grieving? So it's almost as if you have to hide what you're doing.
Which makes it worse.
Which makes it worse. Because grieving is a social thing.
I can't believe that we run out of time because you just are touching on another issue that I think is so critical. The lack of empathy or the inability to understand the peculiarities of a person's grief. Let's end by starting with you, Doc. What would you say to those that are around a person who is grieving to help them to know how to be best able to support the one going through the grief? Take a minute to do that and I'll come to you, Genevieve.
So I say it has to be very simple. Now, you can never know what somebody is feeling. So desist from saying, I know what you feel. You don't.
Don't say that,
Don't say you don't. You might have had a death before, but what I'm feeling now, you cannot feel it. But what you want to say is, I know what you're going through is difficult. I cannot bring myself to appreciate how you feel, but I am also feeling something too. And I want you to know, if you need to talk, I am here. If you need me to do anything to help you, I'm here. Now be careful to say, what can I do to make you better? They say, bring the person back. And the moment you do that, you've lost that opportunity to be around them. So it's almost be around. It's like be present and keep giving them the opportunity. If you need to talk, I'm here.
Can silence be a form of support? Just sitting down, being there and saying nothing, can it be a form of support?
But the premise first. The premise normally sets the tone where you're saying, I know you're going through something. I know it's difficult for you. I don't know if I can do anything about it, but I feel your pain too.
And I'm here.
But I'm here. So that silence downstairs, you've set a premise that I can relate to what you're going through and I'm here for you. But if you just come and you are quiet, sometimes you may be annoying. Right?
Can talking too much also not be an irritant?
Talking too much, especially during that period, is the worst thing you can do.
Worse than the silence?
It's worse than the silence. And most people, when they are talking, they say things like, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. And those things can be very annoying to the person because in the moment, don't forget, they are more emotional than intellectual. So they can't reconcile what you're saying, even though it makes sense. Like literally, it makes sense. But emotionally, I can't relate. So allow them to go through.
I'll give you a medal. Your finish is too real. It's too real. And that is the voice of Dr. Seth Asafo, bringing us understanding about what to say and what not to say. Let me come to you, Genevieve. I'll swing this all the way to your staff.
Yes.
Your staff, they are your team.
Yeah.
How do you support them in an industry where they are always taking care of others? Do you cater for them themselves?
Right. Yes, we do. We have a strong team of young men and women, graduates all over, married, with all kinds of profession working in the industry. And I think one of the biggest thing that hold us together, like I said, is the mindset that we are here to serve the living, and we are serving people at the most vulnerable period of their lives. Okay, that is one. Two, we go through training. Okay, depending, there are various elements. So we have those who are dealing directly with your loved ones. They go through training how to manage their emotions, to be able to be strong enough to manage yours. Because like I said, they are a complete human being with their own set of emotions, but they need to blend all the emotions at the same time. We do psychological support for them from time to time. We bring in, I was telling Doc how we work with his team of psychologists, clinical psychologists to help. And so, and it is regular on an ongoing basis from time to time. And then we do a lot of unlearning and relearning. The industry is not too structured at the moment, so it's much more on the job learning. And we are always, we are eager to learn, look for best practices to support. And so if transition has become a blueprint in the market right now, is that drive to be the best.
I'll testify about my own experience. I mean, when we lost General Ocran, General Albert Ocran, who I was named after, and I called, I can tell you on behalf of the family that the support was tremendous, and it helped navigate us through what was obviously a very tough moment in the life of the family. And I recall a friend that I recommended after that. His first reaction was, "Hey, can I afford it?" And then he went through and found out that it was quality service at reasonable cost. So he now is more of an ambassador than I am. But let me ask you about why customer service is so critical in what you do. Because I remember somebody saying, and not with your place, I will never forgive them, because accidentally he heard somebody refer to the loved one as, "I'm in charge of this cargo," and use the word cargo. And the guy heard it and said, "Me, I will never forgive." How critical is it for those who operate in this space to understand that the loved one has lost life but deserves dignity?
Thank you. So I think it starts from the recognition of the fact that the loved one, like Doc said from the beginning, has relational attachment to the living you are serving. Their moms, their dads, their husbands, their wives, their children, and even friends. They are not cargo, they are not object, they are not dead, they're dead. So at our place, they are beloved, your loved one. And at times when they come in, even some of the family members are struggling to find the right word to use. They can call them by mom or dad. And the dead, body, when they did. No, we don't call body. They are not bodies. They are your mom, they are your dad, they are your loved one. And that's how we relate with them. And the moment you have that mindset, the standard of care moves from transactional to relational.
What number should I call when I want to find transitions?
Okay, so you can call us on 0302 634 706 24/7. We are here to support.
Hit me with the number again.
0302 634 706.
This has been Springboard, your virtual university. If you found anything useful in this conversation, let's continue on social media, talking about preparation, talking about the various components of grief, talking about amelioration, how preparation or talking to the right person can help reduce the stress. And then that interesting part about what to say and what not to say to either exacerbate the situation or lessen it. I hope that any of these thoughts from Genevieve Cornelius, MD of Transitions, and Dr. Seth Asafo from the Ghana Psychological Association has been helpful for you. That's what we do right here at Springboard. Bring you helpful conversations that can navigate you on this journey of life. My name is Albert Ocran, saying a big thank you to my guests.
Thank you
for making time to be with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to you also for listening and to our team here at Springboard Roadshow Foundation and our sponsors, MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group, and our media partners, the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. I want to say God bless you, and God bless you.
Turning point, yeah.